Okay, and we are back once again. This time, the next part of our tutorial series is going to be talking about how we do some AI racing and all the stuff that goes along with that with this program. Um, so at this point, you should have set up your uh, season inside the car that you would like to use for AI racing. Um, and that, like I said, that could be the ARCA car or the 2003 cars or whatever. Um, but you'll have your paint files and everything set up in there, and you'll have done that through the setting up your schedule. You would have set all that up, and then you would have set up secondary paints if you wanted them, because your AI racing does use this. Again, if you want to do that. But the very minimum, you want your primary paints all into the folder that you've created for your season. So again, just to use an example, our 2005 Cup season, we've got our 2005 Cup folder, okay, and then our primary paints are in that primary section of the folder as they should be. So that's how that works. And then from there, we can set up our AI racing. So with the AI racing, if you downloaded the installer files, the extra ones that come with the program, then you would have gotten some of these pre-built rosters that I've already created, such as the 87 Cup, 2005, 2007, and then all your current 2026 rosters. Those are all created, and you could just select one of them. So if you were going to do trucks, you could just select trucks. And if your paint files were in there, you are completely ready to go. You could go to trucks. You could select a race, Daytona, and then you could export that to iRacing, and then you would be ready to go racing. It would just be that easy. But let's assume that you're trying to do something different. Maybe you want to use your own custom roster. Maybe you're doing it for a different vehicle from NASCAR entirely and it's not on here. Whatever that is, I'm going to show you how to set up a new roster. So what we're going to do here, let's go ahead and hit new. And we're going to call, actually, let me just look at one thing. We're going to base this off of the Cup rosters we've been doing. So we're going to make a 2003 NASCAR Cup Legacy Gen 4 roster, okay? So 2003 NASCAR Cup LG4. All right. And then we're going to set our season year as 2003 and our schedule as 2003. And then we've got the Legacy Gen 4 Cup here. We'll set the season for 2003 here as well. Now there's a couple ways that we could create our roster from here. The very tedious and slow way to do it is to click this Add Driver button and type in a driver name, their number, their age, and a default skill level for them, and then add them. Again, it would be super slow and tedious, not the way I would choose to do it, but that's really more useful if you've already got a roster. Like, let's say you're doing 2026 and you're partway through the season and a new driver gets added and you just want to add them in. That's kind of what this button's really more for. It's not really designed to build it out, a 50 or 100 car, or 100 driver roster like we'll see. So what are our other options here? So if you've got all your paint files in your master database and it is named correctly, then it can actually generate the roster directly from those. And so we'll see here if we go to our master database and let's roll on down to the Stock Cars 2 Gen 4 Cup, 2003 Cup. All these drivers and their cars and everything are already in here. So then I can just hit generate from paint files and it's going to figure out their names and everything as it should. Although the name match is not working correctly on that. So there's a little bug we need to fix. But we'll get that fixed up here. Probably before, by the time this gets released, that bug will get fixed because there are a couple features that have been added to this that have not been on the very latest one that I've uploaded at the time of this filming. But by the time I upload this video, we'll have the new version up, and it's going to have fixed that as well. That's one of those things that slipped by. All right, but you can definitely create it that way. Even with this bug the way it is, it still generated some numbers and things. But we'll get rid of that. So what's the other way that we can generate our roster? So the other way, if we go to our AI driver list, and this is kind of a bit of a slow, tedious process in a way, but this could also be probably your most accurate way of doing things if you want to just have a complete full roster of everybody who is in every race. And that's to create this kind of spreadsheet. This might look intimidating, but it's really not, because if you were to export one of the other rosters that I already have here, so say 2004, it would be this exact format. The only difference is some of the car numbers change from year to year, so you have to add those in. And then the way this is set up is if a driver did not attempt a race, you have do not attempt in there, and you can copy and paste that around as needed. And then a lot of times, in like 2003, this is what we're looking at here. The driver's already, somebody who runs a lot of the races, so they'll run for a long time. So it's a lot of just more copy pasting than anything. Matt Kenseth ran the entire season, so he's in like every race except the All-Star Open. Same for Jeff Gordon, all the Tony Stewart, all these guys. So it looks a little worse than it is. I did actually create a scraping program that auto-loaded the vast majority of this information. The only things it can really miss a lot of times is these DNQ drivers, which sometimes you have to go back and find. So like when I did the 87 season, unfortunately, it got a lot of the information, but not quite everything, so I had to kind of go through and refill it all in. But if you're really hardcore about wanting to make a season as accurate as you can, this is the best way to do it. You fill in all the car numbers and driver fields and if they made the race and all that stuff. Also note that a DNQ driver, if you add them, that's just put with a little asterisk there, and that indicates to the program that that's a DNQ. If it's a do not attempt, it'll know to put it in there. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and download this as a CSV. And from there, we're going to cut it. And I'm going to go to my my documents here where I keep the imports for our program. So iRacing Total Team Control, and then we're going to go to imports. And I have a couple of things going here, but we'll do NASCAR Cup driver rosters by year. And just like to get rid of a little bit of that extra on there so I can read it. All right, so then that's there. And then we'll go in here and we're going to go to import rosters by year, and we're going to find that 2003 Cup. And there it goes. It's all imported into our program. And then from there, we can generate a roster from grid. And in this case, since there's just the one car type, it'll automatically just put them all in there. Now, if you have multiple cars, so like let's say you had the, let's say you're doing a next-gen roster, so like 2025, you would have to tell it which each car number, what manufacturer it belongs to. So it'd say, okay, well, the one car, that needs to be a Chevrolet, that kind of thing. The 12 car is going to be in a Ford, and it's going to ask you as you go along, well, where does this car go? Where does this car go? I haven't found any better way to make it automatically know that. There probably is a way, but There's too many combinations to necessarily tell it, oh, well, if you see this symbol, then that means make it a Ford, because, it sounds good on paper, but I don't think it's quite that easy. So you have to just kind of go through it and answer the question on each one. It takes you a little time, but it's not too bad. All right, so we're going to hit yes. 127 drivers have now been added to our roster. So if I go back to session settings, we're going to see all of them in here. You also notice here on the right-hand side, so we have our card number here. On the right-hand side is how many drivers are tied to that specific number. So a lot of times in the case of like the 00 car, these 3 drivers were all driving this car at some point during the season. Same with the regular 0 car, which always reads as 000 for us because iRacing doesn't allow you to use the 0 number, so we get the 000 as a placeholder for the 0. But you can see here, again, all these different drivers drove this car during the course of the season. I will say, if you are not so interested in doing like a race-by-race season and you just wanted to run the same 42 drivers to drive against all the time, then what you would actually do is you would go in here and you would set a preferred driver. If you don't, it's just going to default to the first driver by alphabetical order that it sees. But if you're like, well, I want to race against the 0 car, but I want it to be Jack Sprague the whole season, I don't want him switching around, you can do it that way by just selecting that preferred driver for each one. Same here, you could say, well, I just want Jerry Nadeau to be the driver all the time. That's if you have it set to global. If you do it on a race-by-race basis, because of this grid, that's how it knows what driver belongs in what race. And you'll also notice these purple dots. Those indicate that a driver was a DNQ. So he attempted to make the race, but did not make the race. Then he's a DNQ. As opposed to did not attempt, which either just simply was never there, did not bring their car to the track, or in some cases they might have withdrawn. But those are treated the same as did not attempt. Okay. So let's just check out our first race. If we go to the Bud Shootout, we're going to notice immediately that only 19 of our cars are active, and that's because the Bud Shootout does not have a ton of drivers in it. It's an event that kind of keeps everybody from competing in it, so therefore not all the cars will export. Now I will also note that we have this box checked here to populate DNQ cars. That's not going to apply to the Bud Shootout, but let's switch over to the next race, which is the Daytona 500. And we had 50 cars that attempted the Daytona 500 that year, but that also means that we had ones that did not qualify. So like the 02 car of Hermie Sadler did not make the race, okay? So in that scenario, and I think it's set wrong. I think it says Brandon Nash. Let's see. Yeah, so it should be Hermie Sadler, but that's who would actually populate here. But at any rate, we could tell that he did not make the race, okay? So we can actually turn those DNQ drivers on and off. So if you're like, I don't really want them out there if they didn't make the race, okay, I'm just going to unclick that box, and now it's just the 43 drivers that were actually in the race who would be exported to our JSON for iRacing to see. Okay, but I like to leave them on there just because I always look at it like you could just disqualify the ones you don't want when you get to that point. And I may even be able to make something that would automatically disqualify those drivers, so you have a little checkbox if you want to have the application, when your sim goes over to qualifying, disqualify those guys that didn't make it. So, all right, so with that said, let's actually test this out a little bit. So we're going to flip over to our 2005 Cup season. Reason being that it's got the 2 different cars on it, and I think it'll be good for demonstrating here. So let's go ahead and load up. We're going to go to a Fontana race here with our 2005 cars. So 48 cars are going to be AI cars for us. We do not have any conflicts because I set my car number to 3, so there's no conflicts with anything. If I did set it to one of these numbers, it would actually deactivate that AI driver because you have a number conflict with them. So like, let's say you set your car as a number 24 because you say, well, I'm going to be Jeff Gordon for this season. I want to drive that car and basically take his place. Then the AI Jeff Gordon would be made inactive and would not export. Okay, so then if we took out the DNQs, there'd be 42 drivers who would export. You would be the 43rd driver. Okay, but we're not going to do that, like I said, because we just kind of want to see this. Before we kick over to actually starting a race, I will just point out to you the AI ratings and how this works. So for the 2005 season, I actually set the order of driver skills, and you can do this right over here. Okay, so your highest skill driver you can set at the top. You can drag and drop and move them around this way. You can also double click and change them. Okay, so there's multiple ways you can move them around on this grid here. And then the skill level here is set by these fields here. So you can set minimum and maximum, and then you've got different shapes of how they're distributing this. So if I go with an even spread, for instance, you can see, and this is kind of every 5 cars where it roughly ends up here. So you go from 95 and then down to 79. It says 5 samples, 5 cars it picked, down to 62, and then down to 46. So it's just kind of evenly distributing that skill level throughout the field. But you can do different ones. You can do slight curve. You can do realistic field. So basically that sort of says, it's more biased toward the top half of the grid, the bottom half, and the middle. Things they're kind of clustered. And then you can go star heavy where it's really biased to the top level, and then extreme separation puts just quite a few at the top. So there's just some different ways to do this. This is something that I would definitely take feedback on. How does it work, and should there be different ways that it should work? The other thing is, I kind of put this here. Notice some people said that having low optimism meant that the drivers actually performed better. So you can actually set your maximum to a lower number than your minimum, and then that's going to bias the drivers higher in the order to have that lower number. So, for instance, you'll notice, okay, Tony Stewart. Well, actually, the optimism is backwards here. Let's go ahead and apply those ratings. Or maybe it doesn't work that way. Maybe it makes no difference if you put 5 and 30. Oh, yeah, okay. I actually want it not to work that way. I want it to be able to actually be backwards where it would reverse, so I'll flip that around when I get a chance. But essentially, I want you to be able to set it either, bi-directionally for these things. If you want smoothness to be worse on your higher end drivers or whatever, you just want you to have as much control over this as you want. Of course, you can always just go in here and change these numbers. So if you want to say, oh, well, I want to change Tony Stewart to 20 optimism, you can just do that. And you can change all of these numbers by hand. But while some people like to do that, a lot of people don't want to be that much into the minutia of it, which is fine, of course. Also point out to you, their ages are set here. And when you import the roster, so we can actually just go look at the one I just created. Let's check out that 2003 roster again here. So if you go into ratings here, you'll notice that the ages are all put in, and that's because it's measuring them off of the historical driver database that's loaded into this, which has, a lot of drivers in it. It doesn't have everybody, but this is pretty much just Cup drivers. But you'll notice, a lot of common names you'll recognize, like AJ Allmendinger and Alex Bowman and Eric Almirola and all these people. And all it does is it just looks at the session year and then their birth date, and it does the math, and it figures out, oh, okay, well, this is how old these drivers were at the time of your season. If you notice that some of them are highlighted in red, that is because they are not in the driver database, so it doesn't know how old they are, and it's just kind of telling you, hey, you're going to have to set those ones yourself. Also, you got to look too, because sometimes you'll get some duplication and things. So, for instance, you see PJ Jones here. Most likely, PJ Jones is in our driver database, but it has a space on that P and J, which means it doesn't. Yeah, he's actually in here twice, but it doesn't see it. It has to be an exact match. So you might notice like, oh, things are slightly off. And then some drivers are just missing. So, I'll add to that over time as I do more things. Then we also have a few errant things in here. So I don't know where those 14s and whatnot came from. So I'll have to figure that out and remove them out of there. But there's ever so often there are a few artifacts. Again, this is still pretty new. It's all in beta, just a reminder. But with that being said, let's go ahead and set up this race. So we're going to go back to our 2005 season, and let's go to Fontana. We're going to leave our DNQ drivers in the field, and we're going to hit export to iRacing, and it's going to tell us right now that it just exported this. So if I go over to our documents, iRacing, AI rosters, you can now see this has been populated, and it's just telling you how many paint files were copied over. If you're missing paint files, it'll tell you, hey, I didn't see this, and I'm skipping them. There's quite a few more that will be skipped because I don't have every car. So, all right. So with that said, then we can go into AI single player and a single race. And I did preload most of the stuff here. If we go look at our AI opponents, when we hit to edit our opponent roster, and we're going to see all our paint jobs for cars that we have. So you'll notice we're missing the 12 car, for instance, the 21, the 27. Certain cars are missing. Missing some of the Chevrolets here, quite a few of those, Dale Jr. and Tony Stewart, and some of our popular ones are actually missing from our roster here. But with that being said, we got a bunch in here, and let's go ahead and load up our season race right over. All right, and while that's loading, just take a quick look over here at anything that I may have forgotten to mention. You can notice here that if you have two cars, you can flip back between them, okay, and two car models. So when you set up a new AI roster, you set the number of car models that are going to be in that. So if I flipped over to the, let's do the truck. We have 4 car models there between the Silverado, F-150 Ram, and the Toyota Tundra. You'll notice there's quite a few drivers for trucks. So let's go to our global 47 drivers. If we go to ARCA, we're going to have a ton of drivers in ARCA because a lot of people attempt ARCA. And wait for that. Oh, that's not what I want to do. And of course, it would click in there. It's going to take a second to load those cars up, so we'll keep looking at this real quick. Don't change your schedule. Leave your schedule alone. Let's go to ARCA. And we see our 3 car models there for ARCA, SS, Chevy SS, Ford Mustang, and Camry. Also, we see that inactive player flag just popped up. because I set my car to number 3, and there's a number 3 car in ARCA. So it's telling us, hey, this car just got deactivated because it's conflicting on that Mustang. So, and then you also notice 69 cars out of 59. So if you just like left this on global, you would want to go in here and start deactivating some of these people, because you're going to have so many that iRacing actually won't allow you to do that many. It'll cut you off at 60 cars total, but technically it's 59 because 60 is how many it allows in a session, and your own car counts as a car, so 59 cars is what you're really allowed in there. All right, and here we are, our session loaded up, and we can see all of our paints. That looks a little weird because there's cars inside of cars when you have too many, and we have DNQ cars in there, so we see that car just pulled out of the Bill Elliott car, and now he's looking normal. But as we can see, they're all loading up and starting to go around the track here, and they're all named correctly. And there we go. So they're out there and they're racing, and you could do this pretty straightforward, pretty easy. And then when you want to go to the next race, you can just go back to the UI here, and we would go to, it just takes a second to load because all these cards have to get rebuilt. We would go to Las Vegas, and it would now change who is actually in the race, because it'll see, oh, okay, this car did not attempt, this car attempted. We had 49 that attempted at Las Vegas. At Atlanta, we had 50. At Bristol, we had 48. If I turn this off, it's always going to be 43, because there was 43 cars in every race. So pretty straightforward. But that's how that would work. It does have these exhibition events here. So Nextel Open. Apparently the Nextel Open must not be set. Oh, okay. So as you'll see, if nothing's in these, because the 05, I guess I didn't set for the All-Star race and the Nextel Open, nothing's in them. So therefore, it just assumes that everybody's active. So interesting to see that. Look at first Charlotte race here. Again, got these DNQs. So there you go. That's how you do the AI racing. It's really pretty easy. And you can see all the cars, like I said, out there on track. And then if you were to actually do a race here and you said, oh, okay, we got some cars out here that didn't make the race, so we're going to disqualify the 34. You could do that, you know, or you could just not have them be in there at all if you don't want them there. However you want to do it. All right, so let's quit the session here. I do want to show one other thing here. If you were doing AI racing, now you could really do this with any racing, but it does have the ability to upload your results. So if we, oops, that's not what I wanted. Let's create or load a schedule. Okay. Okay. I think that's just because it doesn't see it on load, so we'll have to fix that because it should have just seen it. Okay, so let's go to imports and let's just grab an event result. Okay, and this is just a New Hampshire race. Okay, and we can see all the stuff here. Okay, so this is your race result. If you go to point standings, you can have your points, and you have different standings you can select from. So in this case, we're using a 2011 season, but we could go to Latford. Okay, you could go to original chase format and expanded chase format, which those should update. That's supposed to change those total points there because those should be slightly different. But again, this is a very new feature. You can add a chase. So after race 26, So if you got 26 events here, then it would start to change that. And you can actually customize drop weeks, so you can add drops, and then not sure it's going to work with just one setting in there, but you could also add a drop in the chase that would be different. So just different things you'll be able to do with this. This is still a very new part of the feature. I haven't focused too much on it because I really wanted to get everything else working. But ideally, you'll be able to do it and just upload your results and have it all here. And the other thing is, if you're running a lot of different drivers and different cars, but you're like, I really, kind of dilutes who's winning the championship, or if one of the cars that has a bunch of these different drivers in it is doing really well, but they're dropping into points because of the driver standings. So it'll also keep track of owners' points. So this is just done by the car number. So kind of a nice feature to have, especially if you're doing, maybe ARCA season where you might have a lot of different drivers in one car number. Well, you might be doing pretty well in the driver championship, but you notice, actually, I'm getting beaten in the owner championship by this one car number. So that could definitely be a thing. So yeah, this is kind of what this is going to do. I think that about rounds everything out here for AI racing and how it works. Hopefully you guys are learning stuff along the way and will enjoy using this program. Looking forward to seeing some comments and feedback in the forums and YouTube and everything. But for now, we'll sign off, and thanks for watching.